right. Hey, everyone. It's Don with Puddle Pirate. Kind of joined or had the luxury to be joined with Lieutenant Greenwell, who is part of Humble Beginnings Coffee Company. So part of what Puddle Pirate's been doing over the last couple months and last couple years is partnering with the Coast Guard Aviation Workout to Remember. And another great organization with HB Coffee is also partnering to help raise funds and raise awareness for that organization. So I figured it'd be a great time today, Lieutenant, to kind of sit down with you, get to know your organization a little bit more, your background and everything. But also, I know you're calling from Training Center Yorktown. So I'm sure many of us have great experience. I think I commented on one of your posts. I remember there going to watch in the middle of the night and just being spooked by deer that would come out of nowhere.
Oh, dude, they're all over the place. Deer shit everywhere.
They are everywhere. So,
yeah.
Lieutenant, appreciate the time today, and look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thanks for setting this up. Appreciate it.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll start first. I know you gave me a little bit about your background, but why don't you tell the crew listening today a little bit about your history in the Coast Guard and kind of where you're at today?
Yeah, I enlisted in 2010, went to boot camp, and right out of boot camp, they sent me to dive school. I just kind of raised my hand for everything, and off I went. So did that for the first couple of years. I got stationed out in Hawaii on the Coast Guard cutter Kukui. It's an ATON platform, and I just did like collateral duty diving. And after, when I wasn't diving, I was needle gunning and doing other sort of ATON ops. I went to Air Station Barbers Point as an airman after that for a few months and tried ASTA school. Didn't work out for me, so they sent me off to a small boat station in New Hampshire, where I struck bosun's mate. And once the dive rating had stood up in 2015, I lateraled right back over to the rating, did MSRT West, the dive locker out there. And from there, I went to OCS in 2017. So that's, I've been in the prevention field since then. Yeah,
perfect. So nice little history. And I'll tell you what, anyone that's diving, I always think about when I was in Kuwait, we did port security over there with 309, and we'd have the Army divers come in and sweep the hulls of some of the ships around the assets in and some of the ships coming in and out. And I'll tell you what, some of that water was murky, dark.
Oh, dude,
would not gross. Be something I would, pretty gross. And most of those Army divers at the time weren't wearing any suits. They were just in their trunks and jumping in. And meanwhile, I'm hand sanitizing left and right. So I give you guys a lot of credit. Ironically, I always joke I have a fear of dark water, but I was in the Coast Guard and made it through. So I give you a lot of credit for some of the operations I'm sure you were on.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I'm not going to lie. We did some pretty nice diving out in the Pacific. We went to all like those atolls and islands out there. So that was pretty good. San Diego was a little different, colder, not as glamorous of a diving community there, but no, it was fun. I really enjoyed that time. But I eventually just decided once I started building a family with my wife to try and maximize what I could earn in the Coast Guard. So I'm an officer.
Yeah, no, that works. So I can definitely appreciate the background. So tell us a little bit more of coffee. Like, how'd you get into coffee, your company? Yeah. Like, how did that evolve?
Coffee was something that I guess I got to start in childhood. My mom always made coffee. I love the smell of coffee. And I just, it was just a smell that I loved throughout my childhood. But I, like a lot of people, did the whole Starbucks thing early on in early adulthood and just did the creams and sugar and basically destroyed what I consider to be good coffee. And it wasn't until actually I got into New Hampshire where I met a current business partner and one of our other buddies, Chad, who has a company. He now makes wooden spoons.
Oh, okay.
It's a pretty cool company. But he actually introduced me to this place in New Hampshire called Breaking New Grounds. And as soon as you walk in, it's like the cliche, like they got the coffee roaster going and all these coffee options are on the wall. And anybody who's ever been to that place knows what I'm talking about. It doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But that was like when I found that place, I was like, man, this is what I want. I want to do this one day. And that's where I had like my first sort of like specialty coffee, like a pour over. I'm not sure if you've ever done like a Chemex. Yep. Yeah. So when I found out about that whole process of coffee and that there's actually like different qualities of it, kind of like never looked back, So I've just been drinking black coffee since then, but just quality stuff. So I guess in a nutshell, that was probably where things shifted from just wanting to have a coffee shop to wanting to be a coffee roaster.
Okay, interesting. And I'm sure through your military career, you've had some pretty poor cups of coffee, I would imagine, if you're kind of a connoisseur out there.
I don't discriminate. I'll drink whatever's there, but if I'm in charge of it, I'll definitely step it up.
Yeah, no.
Right now I'm in this training, and they always ask at the beginning, who wants to be in charge of the coffee mess? And I don't automatically raise my hand, but no one else did. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so I hooked it up. I bought a new machine, got a grinder, a scale, and quality coffee beans. So.
Wow. Yeah. If I was in class with you and I knew your background, I'd voluntold you right away and say, you're definitely in charge of our coffee mess. And
I don't advertise it. I probably should, but I don't walk around like with HB Coffee Co. stuff on. I just, kind of manage it from afar.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's good. It's back in Katrina, '05, we went down there, and for a while we didn't have water, MREs until we got things going. And I remember taking the instant coffee packets, and my chief at the time, I was telling her, I said, I have headaches, going through withdrawals. And she's like, well, we don't have a lot of water. So what I do is she just opened it up, the instant coffee, and kind of packed it in her gums, kind of, like tobacco, just to get the juices flowing.
Whatever works. That's cool.
Desperate times, desperate measures, when it comes to coffee. But yeah, that's a cool background. I think, what's interesting too is just kind of the emotional tie back to your childhood that you mentioned, and kind of how it's evolved here. So, all right. So passionate about coffee, HB Coffee Company. How did that come about? And I know you mentioned that you wanted to be a roaster, kind of go down that path versus owning a shop, but kind of walk us through the evolution of starting the company.
I actually didn't start it. Funny enough, my business partner, John Silva, he's actually the one who started this company back in 2020 during COVID, when everything kind of shut down and you couldn't go to coffee shops or anything. So it was just like an opportunity that he saw to get things going. Like he had a coffee roaster himself, and it's just like, I'm just going to provide. When I saw what he was doing, I actually reached out to him and I was like, hey man, because I had my own roaster I was in Seattle. He was in Boston at the time. And I was like, hey, like, I love what you guys are doing. How can I help? Like, I want to help distribute if I can. And anyway, that turned into a partnership. So
that's great.
Yeah. And at the time there was when he started it was him and his buddy, John Matthews. Also, the three of us worked together in New Hampshire. And anyway, they got things going. I was interested. I kind of joined up. Eventually, Johnny kind of walked away from it, and now it's just John and I. So I didn't start the company. I just sort of helped it become more Coast Guard focused, because both those guys had already gotten out. They do like their own thing on the side. Yep. But I thought, well, why not make this like everyone's got to have like their niche, like the business, and there's a billion coffee companies out there, but not very many Coast Guard focused ones. There's a couple, but we kind of wanted to position ourselves as like, giving to that community specifically. So we did.
Yeah, no, that's great. And kind of cool for you to reinvigorate it into the Coast Guard community, or just try to, really expand it from that. Yeah. I guess with Puddle Pirate too, it's not an organization or a company that I started. Chris did a great job for 10 years, really getting it off the ground and kind of building something there. And similar to you, just trying to, how can we collaborate? How can we get back? How can we do something a little bit different? And, any Coastie knows this. You see Coastie gear out there, we gobble it up just because there's not a lot of it, and so it's pretty cool. So it's pretty cool too, and an opportunity to give back, whether it's for us, the Tactical Law Enforcement Association down in New Orleans, we're giving back to, obviously, the Workout to Remember, but I know that's something that's important to you, just not only expanding this community, but just kind of giving back. So what are some of the things that you're focused on, and how you collaborate, and what you guys ultimately want to do besides produce good coffee?
Oh, thanks, man. Well, we've been able to partner with the Coast Guard Foundation and Mutual Assistance throughout our existence. And we're not like giving back a ton. I know that like you guys are probably able to generate thousands of give back. We can't, we're not that big, but we do it as much as we can. Where we normally find ourselves giving back is just like physical products. So The CGMA, they do a golf event every year, and for the last couple of years, we donate coffee for that. So all the players who attend get little bags of coffee in their rooms from us. So this is to me like the most meaningful way that we can give, because like numerically dollar value, it's still up there. It's just we kind of incorporate it into our operations that already exist. So CGMA golf tournament, the WAD to remember every year that we've been doing I think this is our 4th year working with them. And Coast Guard Foundation, all of our coffee, we put a little Coast Guard Foundation tag on it, and $1.50 from every bag that we sell goes to the Coast Guard Foundation. So yeah, it's small, but it's something, and hopefully one day it'll be more of something.
Yeah, and a lot of these organizations, every little bit counts.
It does, yeah.
They all have great missions and what they're doing to be able to give back. And I don't know, if I attended a golf outing out of town and had some HB coffee in my hotel room versus the hotel coffee, I'd probably feel pretty good about. So I think that's also part of. I think what's cool about your company is good coffee makes people feel good too, right? And so there is a difference there in versus a cup of McDonald's coffee versus what you guys can offer to help out and give back. So that feel good feeling goes a long way too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, McDonald's coffee is not that bad. No, I'm just kidding. It is. I like to give back. I think that's kind of like where we focused our mission early on, was how can we give back to our communities? And it wasn't always like Coast Guard focused. Actually, for the first couple of months, we were just trying to give back to any community, really. And then we eventually pivoted towards like just focusing on the Coast Guard mission.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's kind of a passion, it sounds like, for your organization. Again, whether it's Coasty or what you started with and just kind of giving back versus just trying to turn a profit and be the next big thing out there. But what's the toughest part of owning or partnering with a coffee company? Is it the roasting? Is it the marketing? Is just you got a lot of operations going on?
Oh yeah, no, I think what I've learned so far is that you can't just rely on your product to sell. You gotta actually do the marketing. And it's not as easy as just putting a post on social media. Like, you really, really got to dig deep and kind of insert yourself. So it teaches you some pretty good sales tactics, just overcoming that hesitation to sell and be the spokesperson for your own brand. I know I mentioned earlier that I don't really do that, and I don't walk around in uniform saying like, buy my coffee. In fact, I've had talks with legal about that. Basically, like, you can't do that. There's an assumption there that you might be using like rank or position to sell your product. So I think the toughest part is actually being tied to those constraints, like knowing the boundaries of ethics, because we are so Coast Guard focused, and I am a Coast Guard officer. Like, where do I have the flexibility to actually represent my company and not the Coast Guard, and kind of like don't cross that path? So social media presence is huge, and it has to be done cleverly, I think, so that you don't represent yourself as a Coast Guard entity. So if that makes sense, because like you're Puddle Pirate, everyone knows you're connected to the Coast Guard, but you're not active duty anymore. So you have a lot of flexibility in how you can market yourself, and I don't have as much flexibility. So that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and it's got to be tough. I can only imagine the fine line that you have to kind of walk. And I know there's other active duty coasties out there that have similar, not similar brands, but brands out there and products. And it is a delicate balance or dance that you have to do.
Yeah.
But and for us, Puddle Pirate, anyone in our community knows what that means. The history of a nickname there, but for your organization doesn't really stand out, but it's really cool to kind of see some of the things that you're doing and following you on social media, in that regard too. So, for folks out there, how do they find you? How do they learn more about you? How do they get some good coffee their way? It's all social media, or what's the best way?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like our biggest presence is through Instagram. We should probably be more active on Facebook and other social media platforms. But truthfully, like it's two of us who run like most of the operation, and we have sort of like some like people that we contract out to do like some of the other stuff, but they're not involved in our business. They're just involved in supporting the business. So between John and I and our lives as fathers and my demands as a coastie, his demands with his career, like time is just it's that I've time is the biggest resource out there, and we just don't have a lot of it. So I would say the best way to find us is through social media, and hopefully we can start picking up our presence there, finding other ways to market. I don't know, honestly, like that's the best I could give. hbcoffeeco.com is the best place to go to buy the product, but you could also purchase it through Instagram and Facebook. So
yeah, so a couple different ways to follow
sure.
you, and definitely follow your, for those listening, follow your brand on Instagram. It's fun
Yeah.
just kind of see some of the things you're doing out there, and collaborations as well with other coastie organizations.
I think that's also a good way, just to continue to collaborate. Any way that you can partner with somebody else is obviously going to kind of expand your aperture and get you some more eyes. That has actually worked for us quite a bit. So maybe we could start doing more of that. I know you guys are selling coffee now too, so maybe we can partner in something like that.
I feel like there's a future collab coming with maybe a Puddle Pirate branded
good.
coffee from your organization, which is good. Definitely not a top seller, from our side of things, but maybe that could change in the future for sure. So Lieutenant, just any last advice for people, whether they're, looking to start an organization or anything about your brand and company that you want the coastie community to know and understand?
I think probably the best thing is, if you got like a passion project in mind, go for it, do it. Everyone has something. I think everyone's got that thing in the back of their mind. They're just like, I just want to try it out, but I'm afraid to. And being in the Coast Guard, it's hard to, or active duty, anything, it's hard to sort of balance those two lives. But it's actually the best time to try if you can, because you have like job security, you're going to get a paycheck, but you also have an opportunity with time to use it for pursuing a passion. And if that passion becomes something, then you can shift from, obviously, when you're going to either retire or get out, to right into something that you love doing. So that would be my biggest advice to give is, don't let that passion die just because you feel like you don't have the time or life takes over, because life's busy. Got two kids, a wife, full-time coastie, and I don't have a lot of spare time, but there is time. And I love spending my time doing like the roasting and the bagging and interacting with people. As far as things about the company to know is, we're always open to collaborating, or always open to, finding our way into your coffee mess at your office. So whatever prices you're seeing online, just give us a shout or email or whatever. There's always some wiggle room there. So, we have to consider shipping costs and stuff like that, especially coming from Alaska. But, if you reach out to me directly, which many have, I always find a way to make it work. So I just leave it with that.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate it, and definitely appreciate the time, and
Yeah,
I kind of look forward to seeing more success. But one thing I want to do point out, you talk about kind of following your passion, and whether it's the side hustle or whatever you want to call it, that's one thing I take to heart, and try to encourage other individuals that you never want to look back and say, I should have done something, or I should have gotten involved, or I really enjoyed that. I wish I would have made something of it. At the end of the day, whether you're active duty still or have a full-time job, there's always that opportunity to kind of explore that itch if that is something that you are passionate about. Because I never want individuals to kind of look back and kind of have that regret. Like, I wish I would have at least give it a shot. And it might not work out, but you can sleep well at night knowing you gave it your all. Or it does become something, and you can be excited and enthusiastic about it too. So I think that's good advice for those out there.
Couldn't agree more, man. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time today. Enjoy Yorktown and safe travels back to Alaska in a couple weeks.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Bye.